I'm back. So I put out a video today about the evolved apes, I think it was called, and about Luke Plunkett and Kotaku's journalism and all that stuff. I actually had some time to do some digging of my own. I found a podcast where Luke was a guest on it, a Kotaku podcast, and in that podcast, I got a chance to actually hear more of his point of view on this. And this is something that I wish would come out more in his writing. And I think I understand why it doesn't, right? So just to go back to that subject here, I wish I had it pulled up still. Essentially, the podcast opens up with, I guess, a lot of his colleagues at Kotaku. They're reminiscing about the good old days when these concepts like skins in video games and loot boxes and microtransactions were like first coming out, both in like PC gaming and console and then on mobile, and how at first there was this like visceral reaction towards it where people hated it, and over time people have just kind of grown to accept it and occasionally buy skins and buy cosmetics and things like that, including some of his colleagues, right? I didn't catch their names, I don't remember their names, but they did mention, someone on there did mention that she spent some money on some skins for some kind of Sailor Moon game or something, and like, you can't really fault someone for that. If you like that brand or that game, fine, why not? Like, that's not going to hurt anyone. But this idea that kind of just like they were able to kind of get over that that first initial visceral reaction, and then kind of just like accept it, right? For the for good or bad, for good, better or worse, right? And now we have these things, and they're in games again, and it's just part of the gaming culture. It's part of the roadmap for a game, right? Now, one of the other folks on the podcast mentioned that he had purchased some kind of skin in that cartoon Battlefield game that came out a long time ago. I actually played that. I think it was the free to play game, and he was really into it, and he bought the skin. And as soon as he bought the skin, he hated it, and he was like, "Why did I spend money on this?" Right? Guess what? In the blockchain space, you could just sell that back to the market. Like that's kind of like part of the difference here when you're talking about a decentralized network and a centralized game store, where all of the e-bucks and all of the whatever the in-game money is, the coins, the gems, the whatever it is, you're not getting that back. You're not cashing that back out. You have invested into that game, whether it's because you can't help yourself or because you want to try to, I don't know, like you feel bad for the people who worked on the game and you want to try to support them that way. You're the money you dumped into it is stuck in that game. When you stop playing it, you're not getting that investment back. There's no it's done, right? It's gone. The time you spent playing it and sunk into that game, you got nothing out of it, unless you're a game streamer or something like that, in which case you're building a career off of it, again doing something that's completely optional and has its own eco footprint. But no one's out there trying to, again, demonize folks who do that. Funny story. So this quick segue. I just, while I was doing all this stuff today, I saw that there was a hack, or a leak with Twitch, right? Some hackers got in and released a bunch of information, and I think I saw something about that where maybe someone had gone through the information and they were able to find out that women were getting paid way less in terms of like the top streamers and all this kind of stuff. Guess what? In the blockchain space, all of that stuff is public. you can look into people's wallets and you can see how much money they're making. Um, Granted, someone can make an anonymous account and they can, like send money to that account and then you won't know who received it, but you can at least trace it back. You can see who sent the money where, and um, alert the rest of the folks, on Twitter and in all these different spaces, or in the projects themselves, and say, hey, look, don't fuck with that person, don't do a transaction with that person, right? Um, the fact that we even have information about, um, which Luke brought up, that the majority of the artists who are actually, and this is an old podcast, so this is like back in March or something. I think it was, oh, I don't remember her name, but this, I think she's like a concept artist, who did a really comprehensive report around like the sales on, I think it was Super Air and Foundation and things like that. And I mean, she put out a bunch of other kind of like anti crypto stuff, anti NFT stuff, but I have to respect the research done, to sort through all that data and get actual facts about like the breakdown of who's making the money, or at least who was back then, specifically in the art space, not collectibles. I'm talking like art. So, um, the fact that you can even do that, says something, right? You can't do that in the traditional art market. No one's going to give you that data. That transparency does not exist. You can't do that in the gaming industry. These companies are not going to give you access to that data. Facebook's not going to do it. Google's not going to do it, right? Twitter's not going to do it. They don't even let you search properly because they don't want people scraping a bunch of information, right? You can't even pull a decent search. Um, so, uh, yeah, I don't know. It's just it's weird. So back to what I was saying. So I'm listening to this discussion, and again, they're all reminiscing about like gaming um, and like all of the weird kind of fucked up systems in gaming that kind of manipulate people into spending more money in there, and all the all this kind of stuff. The stuff that I was like harping on in the last video. Um, the To Luke's credit, I will give him credit for this. He did mention in the video, in the podcast, that um, he doesn't see the technology as evil, or as the fact, like the idea of tokens and NFTs and all of this stuff, and the fact he understands, which I'm glad to hear this. I'm so glad that he gets this. Um, I have much more respect for him knowing this, that uh, it's not just art. Excuse me, it's not just art. These tokens, this idea of tokenized information that lives on a public ledger, and it's like in there indefinitely. Um, he gets that this goes beyond art. This can be used in other sectors, in healthcare, in government, in land rights, in whatever. It's like the fact that he knows this makes me feel so much better. And um, again, I'm not here to like give an apology. I'm actually here just to be like, okay, the I'm gonna scale back what my assumptions that I put out about what he knows and doesn't know. Um, and the reason why I won't apologize is because, again, if in his writing he was this forthcoming with the amount of knowledge that he has about this, even though he doesn't like NFTs and doesn't like this idea of like speculative um, markets around collectibles and certificates of authenticity, and people just using it as a financial vehicle to invest and grift. He loves to use that word, and you know try to basically make a bunch of money before the whole thing collapses. Even if that's the way he sees it, but he also understands the potential good. The fact that he's not balancing his writing out says something. To me, what it says is that he cares more about those clicks than he does about putting forth an actual like balanced argument around this topic, right? um, and it's a shame. I still think it's a shame because, again, he might hate talking about it, but he has a platform and an influence where he can actually inspire people who also have their doubts and their speculation about it to be critical about it in a way that's like useful and not just in a way that's going to um, keep them from like fully understanding the concepts that they're going to have to sort of educate themselves on later on in life, right? Or very soon if this stuff kind of takes off beyond just art. It's kind of, again, it's doing a disservice to the people um, who are his audience, because at some point this stuff is going to cross over into their lives whether they like it or not. Well, it's either going to be in gaming, most likely, or in some other kind of sector. And I mean, if it's in a different sector, most likely it's going to be in the background. They won't even know. It's going to be just like HTTP, like some kind of protocol where you don't think about what is HTTP. It's just you type it in. You don't even see it now in the browser, right? So, but it's there. These things are working in the background. Right now they're in the foreground and they're very messy and they're very prone to scams and all this kind of stuff. But I see this as like uh, a blocker to tech literacy, essentially. So the same problems that we have where people don't understand how Web 2 platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube are all manipulating them by basically, again, doing the same thing that games do sometimes. And I don't hate games, but I have to take this argument. I have to take this position because Luke is taking such a strong position against NFTs. So I have to take this position. I love games. I don't have enough time to play them as much as I would like to. I like the storytelling aspect of it. I like the artwork. There's so much to love about games, right? I don't hate games, but he hates NFTs, right? So I have to bring that other viewpoint. Um, but yeah, like, imagine if you didn't know, if no one ever taught you or talked about or told you don't look at it, don't think about it. Um, the the way these social networks manipulate us, right? Um, the way that like they like put us in these different bubbles, right? And all this kind of stuff that just, it's like media literacy like 101 kind of stuff. Imagine if you never learned that because someone told you don't look into it, like just don't use it, and if you do use it, then fuck you, like if that was the message, that's not helpful. That's not really helpful, because then when the person inevitably does use it, they're not going to know what's going on. They're going to be, I don't know. I don't know. It's just like you're putting someone in a position where they are going to be the last to understand what is happening and how things are changing. And the sad part is Luke knows how, to some degree, he knows the potential good that this stuff, like, yeah, the way it's being used now is, a grift, or however he wants to put it. It's not, to him, it's not something that like is worth the energy that's spent to hold these networks up and allow for people to trade speculative artwork. Okay, fine, I'll give you that. But again, if it's going to move beyond this, and it will, like just telling people to like not, I don't know, to like putting this idea in their head, this where it's only a negative thing because that helps you get clicks for your website, right? That's the part where I kind of have an issue with it. Same with Everest. Same issue with Everest. Everest is smart. Everest knows how this stuff works, right? I don't know if Everest readers know how this stuff works, beyond the grift and all of that. Just from a technological point of view and like the potential that this stuff has in other markets and capacities, and contexts, like there's an understanding there that I think some of the fans and audiences don't get, but the writers get it. but like they make more money like writing these clickbait articles, and appealing to your emotion than they do trying to educate you about these are the pitfalls and then these are the potential good, right? That's not a sexy article, right? That's not going to make you like want to retweet the, oh, look what I learned today about. No, that's, the blockchain, crypto hype, FOMO, that kind of stuff, that sells. People post that all the time and go crazy about it on Instagram, or rather on Twitter, and like there's a mania around that. And so for someone in their position, Luke and Everest and other people like this, um, well, okay, how do I challenge that? I guess I'll write an article that only talks about the negative things and never mentions anything positive. And that way I'll get the other segment of the market who like is unsure about it, but they kind of know me from, previous, maybe they read Kotaku, or maybe they're a gamer or whatever it is, or maybe they looked at my resource for artists and have some kind of like, they trust my opinion in some way. And so therefore, they'll be an easy mark to kind of just like have them click my article and then I get paid for that shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So again, I respect the fact that he has done the research. I don't know how much he's done since March, but like at least he did put forth this kind of more measured tone around it, and prefaced it with like, I know it's not all bad, but the way it's being used now kind of sucks. I like that. I really do. But the the version of Luke that you get when you're reading Kotaku is so edgy and so I don't know, like, um it's just basic. It's very basic. It's just it's not it just appeals to your emotions, and that's it, right? That is it. So again, I hope I can dig up some more situations where Luke has spoken on this in depth in other formats, because I would love to actually hear what Luke has to say about it when he's not trying to be edgy and get clicks. I would love to hear a more thought out conversation and have it relate again back to how the gaming industry has all these mechanisms and is ready to kind of bring this stuff in and just hype it up, to crank it up to 12. And now that I understand that he gets that, I just hope that version of Luke comes out at some point, because again, I think we need people like this. I think we need people who are critical but can actually form a real good argument and a real good debate around this stuff, because those are the people that are going to be able to challenge companies when, again, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen. The U.S. is already doing it with stable coins, and they're looking at doing like their own, U.S. and other countries too, China, doing their own version of like blockchain, which will be centralized, right? It'll be faster, it'll be more secure, but guess what? Now the government knows everything that's happening in your wallet, right? If you're using their digital dollar, they know everything that you're doing. So, among a bunch of other things that could like be really problematic about that. Just imagine gaming, the same situation. They already have a lot of power and a lot of say in what you can and can't do, and what kind of value you can like claim for yourself for the time that you put into their systems and their networks. Just imagine when they have their own blockchains that they're running these games on and stuff. Nothing will change. We'll have like season passes and V-Bucks and little whatever, all these little stupid little like in-game currencies that we won't be able to pull out of that game and that network, the Activision bucks or whatever the hell, but it'll just be on their own network, right? They'll have their own token, and who knows, maybe with their user base, like just like in the podcast, maybe people will just get used to it and nothing will change, and we'll just be back to where we started, with loot boxes and skins and all this other shit. So that's the part two to this rant. Again, Luke, if you're out there, please, 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 um, just I don't know, just put your thoughts out in some other format because I want to hear them, and I know that you are not like that you have more depth to you when it comes to this, and I just want to see that come out. That's all. Anyway, thanks for watching.